So we have students from all different backgrounds.
Yeah,
Lovely. Hi, Lejo. Welcome on board. Thank you so much, for taking time out and, doing this webinar. The mentees are very excited. We already have about 84 mentees who are on board, looking to grab as many tips as you can to help them out with their resumes as well.
that's great.
So
I'm also very happy to be here. It's a good audience, and I hope we can make the most of this 1 hour we have.
definitely, definitely. So, Lejo, before we get started, can you introduce yourself? Tell us what were you working on, what are you studying, and a little introduction about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So, I have done my BTech as a qualification in my undergraduation, and after that, I pursued my MBA Finance. And post that, it landed me a job in audit, not willingly, but yes, I landed there. So then I kind of developed the interest in that, and now it's more than 6 years I've been working in the audit industry. Internal audit and process audits are my forte. And also, I had a dream when I was a child to join the army, and also I have given a couple of times I've reached the SSB interview final stages. So that's where I picked up this art of doing a good interview, writing a good resume, how to write a resume to direct the interviewer to question you in a certain way that keeps you comfortable throughout the interview, helps you crack it. And post that I have switched 3 jobs now, and pretty successful at that, I should say. I've been able to help my family, friends, and that's how I have built that skill and the confidence to help people with their resumes. And I hope today I'll be able to benefit all our attendees, around 90 now that I see. So it's great to be here.
Lovely. Thank you so much for coming on board. Lovely. So you can take over and you can share your screen.
I have shared my screen. Are you able to see now?
Yes. Yes, we're able to see.
Right. So, today, the topic for today, we all know, it's the perfect resume. So, my first question to everybody on this call, on this webinar here is, do you think a resume can be perfect, or how perfect can a resume be? What would, just give a second, 2 second thought to that, how perfect a resume can be. So, do you have like 100% perfect resume ever possible? So, my thought to this, I think I'm getting some,
Yeah.
chats as well.
So mentees, you can post in your responses in the chat section.
Right. So, my thought to this is your resume could only be as perfect as your understanding of the job description, because that is what lands you the job. Otherwise you could brag about yourself on the resume. You could not write enough on your resume, or you could write so much on your resume, but you will not land the job because we don't know what the job demands of us. And that is possible if we look at the job description, if we try to interpret the job description, and then put our thoughts to write the resume. So today we'll be doing that. We'll go through this, a few slides I've prepared, and I am keeping it very general. I'm not talking about any particular profession or any particular domain. This is a generalist stuff. So you may have certain doubts or questions pertaining to your specific domain. We can take those towards the end of the session. So let's move ahead on this, on this topic now. So to make a perfect resume, I guess there is a optimal balance of certain listed factors, which is I've listed some of these factors, and we need to find an appropriate balance of these factors. So first question that pops up in your mind, it could be what is the length of the resume that I should keep? Is it a 1 page? Is it 2 page? Is 2 page good enough? Or is do I have to put a 3 page or a 5 page resume? Also before that, there's another question I want to ask all of us. I hope we are aware of what is the difference between a resume and a CV. Are we aware of what is the difference between a resume and a CV? So, like, the basic difference, the very basic difference between a resume and a CV is a resume is designed, is custom made or tailored for a specific job. And a CV is more like, an entire description, an entire listing of everything that you have done, everything that you have achieved till date in your professional, professional career. So that's the basic difference between a resume and a CV. So when we build a CV, it should be more like how we do a object oriented programming, how we have different modules we fit in, and a particular job, a resume for that particular job is ready. So if we can build our resume that way, it will always be helpful for us. So first is the length. Next is whether we should make a functional resume or a chronological resume. So who would make a chronological resume? I guess all of us here, we are students or freshers, or maybe maybe 1 or 2 years, 3 years experience, that kind of crowd here. So for us, I think it makes sense to always go with the chronological format of the resume. And somebody who's doing a freelancing, or somebody is into interior designing, or some profession like that. So for them, it really doesn't matter whether we put the chronological order. In fact, it matters more if we can put a functional a resume there, because that shows what kind of work he has done and what kind of quality of work deliverable he's kept capable to bring out. So that is when they use a functional resume. But I guess most of us here would use a chronological one. Then do we make it a visual heavy one or a textual heavy one? Do we want more text, or do we want some graphics, more graphics? We need to find an optimal balance. Similarly, what is the kind of detail that we are willing to give? So I've seen resumes where we are still putting maybe like a debate competition that I won in 12th standard or 10th standard. So is that kind of level of detail required or not required? And of course, the aesthetics, so the choice of fonts, colors, and layout, that should be something which is capable of, first of all, grabbing the attention and retaining that attention for at least a few moments, so that a person, he does not just put your resume aside. He is forced to read through it. And next is, of course, the choice of words. It's very important, we use the right words, we use the proper keywords, and we are able to convey ourselves appropriately. So so before writing a resume, we need to have a certain mindset before writing a resume. And I will tell you how to, before even you start penning down the first word, what are the things that you need to know. So the first one here is, of course, know your professional aspirations. And in terms of size, reputation of a company, role, domain targeted. So what is it that you want to do in your professional life? What kind of role are you looking at? What kind of industry do you want to join? All of these things, where you want to go professionally, you should have it very clear in your mind. Now where it helps in your resume, the field, so a resume has a certain layout, and it will have certain I should say blocks. So you would have seen, we have an objective block many times, or a summary block. Then we have skill set, then we have personal details, we have work experience, we have certifications, we have references, declaration, all of these different kind of blocks that we use. So this particular first item, which is our professional aspiration, this helps us to put a very honest objective on our resume, which is a very must, because that is one of the first things that a recruiter would read. And it needs to be really good, and it needs to be honest as well. So next is know your skill set, your accomplishments, and your personality traits. So because a job description will also mention, we'll see in the coming slides as well, I will show you an example also. So we need to know our skill set, we need to know what we have accomplished, and what are our personality traits. A certain job may demand somebody who's smart, a certain job may demand somebody who's hardworking, a certain job may demand somebody who can stretch beyond the usual hours, a certain job may require people to travel. So you need to know what kind of things you're good at. Then next is know your company size, structure, compensation. This is also just to make sure that you're applying for the job which you are really interested in. because nobody wants to waste time, neither us nor the recruiter's time. So we need to know this. The last one is what the job demands. So what are the qualifications, which acts like the, like, eligibility. So if you have a certain qualification, you are eligible, like, they'll start looking at your profile. And then the skills which are needed to excel in that job, the experience, the certifications, all of these things. And, like, whether team management versus individual contributor. So some of us, like, we want to lead a team now, like, we are done with our individual contribution, we need to lead a team now, we have that aspiration. So we need to know whether, like, we are okay just being an individual contributor, or we need to have a team, and we like being in a leadership position. And similarly, what are our travel preferences, are we open to relocation, all of those things. Yeah, so now, like, this I think is the most important slide on this PPT, on this deck here. And like I told, like, your resume could only be as perfect as your understanding of the job description. So this is one example which I have taken, and I will try to, like, quickly run you through how we look at a job description and how we frame the resume in our own mind. So when we look at it, the first, the, like, the top of the resume, the top of the job description, sorry. So it says, like, do you want to work in a fun, smart, and energetic environment? So what does this line tell? It tells a little bit about, like, what kind of environment you're going to work in. So if your professional aspiration is also similar, like, and it further says where you will be challenged and everything. So, like, if you want to work in a such an, so that is where you connect it with your professional aspirations. Okay, this is the right place, this probably is the right role. And then, like, you can go forward with that. Now coming to the third line, like, it says we are the world's leading affiliate marketing network. We transform with digital marketing, help of big data and business intelligence. So, like, this is where you exactly come back to your competencies. So, like, big data, business intelligence, digital marketing, if you have these things in your competencies, or you have already helped somebody transform their businesses using these skill sets, then, like, it becomes your accomplishment. So out of this, like, that's where you connect. And you, in your resume, these particular sections which I have listed on the left side, just, like, try to match the color. So the red block corresponds to the red pointers on the left side. And like, so competencies, accomplishments, when you write in your resume, it should exactly mirror what is, like, written in the job description. So ideally, I'll just give you an example. So here it says we transform, like, digital marketing for our clients with the help of big data and business intelligence. So here, what your accomplishment should be, like, ideally it should sound like helped a client of this much size to transform his digital, like, his business using big data and business intelligence, something like that. So that should be your accomplishment which comes in your resume. Your competency would be to, like, something like draw insights using Power BI business intelligence tool or something like that. So that's how you relate it back. Now coming to the skills and the interests and hobbies. So, like, the next block which says what are your skills, what are your interests, what are your hobbies. So here, like, it says build creative newsletters to inform publishers of updates, brand guidelines, performance objectives, etc. So I've seen many times we mention in hobbies, like, stuff which is not really useful. I mean, like, we put something, and even without knowing. So I've seen a lot of people just put an avid reader, like, in the hobbies, reading books or music, playing, something like that. But how does that help in your job? It does not. So it's not really a hobby that goes into the resume. A hobby which goes into a resume would be something which addresses this point, like, build creative newsletters. So you need to put a hobby which shows the creative side of yours uh, to the recruiter. That's how, like, it will help you land a job. And uh, it could be anything, like, logo design or blogging or anything, video blogs, anything. So, like, that comes back here to all of this. And your skills as well. So, like, in your skills, so basically, what is the difference between a skill and a competency? We could have 100 skills, but we would be competent only in 2 or 3 of those. And, like, skills is something we have, but not really our like, differentiating factor. But competency is something where, like, it helps us compete with others, it helps us, that is the driving force behind our like, success. That is the basic difference. Now coming to the next block, like, it says what we look for. So you have a bachelor's degree. That's what comes into education. You are passionate about providing excellent service to internal and external customers. So like, right here, your awards comes into place. So I've seen many people, they write awards, but they will mention something like first prize in debate competition, 12th class, first prize in, like, some other competition, 11th class. That does not matter. Like, maybe in your last job, you would have got something like, some award which says best customer service or something like that. And here it talks about, like, you're passionate about providing. So how will you show to them that you are passionate about providing excellent service to customers? That's if you write in your awards, like you have been awarded in your previous jobs, like, the best customer service or innovative design or something like that. So that's how your passion will be clear to the recruiter. Now post that, obviously, like, next points, the certificates, courses, everything. So it says you're proficient in Microsoft Office, especially Excel, you have strong analytical skills, things like that. So if you have some certificates or courses done in these areas, again, like, it is a plus point when a recruiter looks at your resume. So we read the job description, and again, like, in certificates, I've seen, especially in this lockdown period, many of us have, like, tried to upskill ourselves and reskill ourselves. So we've done a lot of certifications. Some of them are doing certifications every single day, but you don't put all of that into your resume. Like, you put what the job description demands from you. So if I've done something like, Microsoft Excel, I've done some course in Microsoft Excel, I will put that here, because that's what the recruiter is looking for, and I want him to see that. If I put 10 other things, he probably will not even see the Excel one. So, like, that's not something I want. So I hope, like, you are able to get some sense of how to read a job description and how that relates back to each of the points in your resume. So always remember, the resume, like, it's limited number of words, limited space, but so much to tell and such a big opportunity to lose or to gain. So, like, you should use every single inch of that resume page to sell yourself, to sell your skills, and do it smartly by looking at the job description. So, like, this is how you'll be able to relate. And you do the same exercise for another 4 or 5 job descriptions on your own. I'm sure you'll like, get a knack of it, and you'll be uh, almost a pro at it if you really honestly do it. So let's move ahead now. The, like, after you've done this, so this is still now, like, we haven't put a single word on our resume. It's all in our mind. And now the next one is the first draft, which again is a mind map. So, like, it's still not on paper or on computer, it's just in our mind. So now reading this page, like, what we would do, we would have to think of the skills that closely align with the job description. So if like, we need to, in our mind, we need to gather all those skills we possess which align and which are demanded in the job description. Now again, accomplishments and awards which should convey, like, what you're passionate about and what gives you an edge to succeed in your role. So if we have accomplished something like that, or we were awarded some awards in our previous organization or even in college, like, anything like that, so that's what shows our passion, and that will be clear to the recruiter when he looks at your resume. Next is, like, qualifications and certifications which convey domain knowledge gained through formal education. So, like, that becomes your eligibility again. And also, like, the experience, so the relevant experience. Some of us might have lot of experience. We might have done internships if you are a student. So, but, like, so for example, if I'm applying in Google and I've done an internship in some, like, some retail organization, maybe Big Bazaar or some brand factory. So, like, that does not really count for your Google job. Most likely it does not count for your Google job. So we need to be aware of that and put only the relevant experience, because more than everything, it shows the seriousness of that candidate, and, like, the effort he has made to bring out a good resume, a relevant resume. So include only what is relevant. Now the next one is, like, always try to include 1 or 2 webinars, recent ones, courses, or professional membership relevant to the job role. Like, because it demonstrates something, self-development initiative and updated knowledge. So, like, if you are somebody who has, like, a professional membership or who is continuously attending things which he is interested in professionally. That shows that you are committed to self development, and it gives much more comfort to the recruiter to hire you than anybody else. That's what makes you stand out. So till now, this is on the mind map. Now we'll start putting it on a resume. So now the first step when you go there is to see and identify what kind of resume you want. Now almost what is the information you're going to put. So you would have a broad idea how to bring it out, what kind of layout looks best for me. I've just shown some examples here. So we need to find what fits us best. It's not a one size fits all approach we use for the resume, and it's everybody's own choice and own preferences on the layout. So the first one is the layout sections. What all sections do we need to have in our layout? These are the very common ones which you see here. And what kind of detail we want to put. Do we want to put it all in one paragraph, the left one, which if you see, it's very tough to differentiate between different sections or different paragraphs. But in the right, in the middle one, if you see, it's very clearly demarcated, and it's easy to read. However, the first one, if printed on a paper, it would be much easier because it's just black and white. It does not have any chance of on a computer screen, a chance of bad visibility is not there. And similarly, if you print it out and if your toner is not completely good, it will still come out well because it's just black and white. At the same time, the middle one uses some color which is more like something like a teal color. So that could suffer if your toner is not good, or if your screen color is not good for the viewer when he's looking at it. So generally we try to use neutral colors, which is dark background and a light color on it, or a light background and a dark color on it. So the third one looks pretty decent to me, which is black and white more or less. And however, now if you see at the difference between the first one and the last one is uh, the third one, it uses a lot of icons. For address it has a home icon, for phone it has a phone icon, email is an envelope, and things like that. So I'll talk about that as well as we move ahead, what is the preferred thing and everything. And the use of colors, I already talked about it. Yes. So next, this is the, what do you want to do? You want to keep it textual or do you want to keep it visual? So what is the balance you want to keep? For example, here if you see the third one and the middle one, it's pretty visual. It looks more like a dashboard than a resume, but some people do prefer to keep it that. And again, the next point is whether to include a photo or not to include a photo. So that's personally I would say a photo is not required as such, and until and unless it's uh, explicitly asked to be included. And for most of our roles, if it's not front end, where we are meeting customers and things like that, the photo is not at all required because the recruiter is not really interested in the appearance there. Next is symbols versus text. So this is what I was talking. So if you see here, the first one, if you see on the left side, it uses phone, phone, the word, and then gives the number out. Similarly, website, email, it's all keywords he has used. But the middle one, if you see, it's again icons. It has a phone icon, home icon, envelope icon, and a globe icon. So what happens is these days most of the it's ATR softwares are there which are able to scan your resume, and it's automated systems which scan your resume. So although many of them are AI based and are able to track even when it is with icon, but it could be a case where in some cases it just misses because it couldn't identify. So I would always say, although visually the icon looks better and this one looks pretty boring, but this one has a better chance of getting identified even in an automated software where you use the explicit words phone, website, email, and things like that. So we need to find our fit depending on the situation, depending on the job. And I think yes, that's it. So the next one, the basics of writing a resume. Now this is where you're going to put down things on paper, on your computer, So the layout, fonts, and colors, these are more or less flexible, but always keep it clean, keep it simple, and visually soothing. So what that means is a clean layout, which enables easy demarcation. And if it does not have to have the recruiter to get his eyes rolling from one side to the other. If he's looking at it, he should be able to look at it in one view. Your information should be arranged in such a manner. I think that is what is a clean layout. And legible font and contrast colors. So if you see here I've tried to make a contrast color. So your headings could be like this, or a black and a white is also good, because it increases the visibility and the readability, rather than the second one, which is like a light blue or something, and a white color text, so that reduces the readability. And this is a doubt I get many times, and a question I get many times, whether we should write resume, the word resume, explicitly on top of the resume. So it's not required. It's really not required. And it used to be a old habit, but it is no more practice. It need not be there. And once again, photograph can be avoided unless specifically asked. And self declaration and references, once again, this is a section which we are all used to putting. And I remember when I was younger, this was a compulsory section on the resume. But these days, if you see, the self declaration and the references are also not put on the resume unless it is specifically asked to do so. So the reason for that is simply because a resume is not really a legally binding document, and a declaration is generally given on something which is legally binding. So when even if the recruiter hires you, he would take references when he is doing your onboarding, and you would sign more than enough number of declaration when you are being onboarded. That is what is legally binding, but your resume is not really legally binding. So I would prefer not to waste the space on the resume for self declaration and references. Now, this is a tip on the section arrangement. So you would have seen many people, they write an objective and they directly come to the educational summary or education details, and they prefer to keep the work experience towards the end. So that is our choice. But generally, the top and the left of the page are the preferred sections to put the information where you want to draw maximum attention. That is why you would see a lot of resumes, the first thing on the left side you would see is a skill set. They make separate thing for a skill set, and the first thing you would see is an objective, and again work experience and things like that. So it is your choice, but generally I would say work experience is more relevant than your education, because and that is more so when you have more experience. But if you are a fresher, yes, your education is something important, so which should take preference over other things. Now the next is the choice of words. So here, this is also one of the most important slides, I should say. So we need to avoid putting down a verbose summary or an objective on the resume. We have to keep it concise and we have to keep it powerful, not very long sentences. We maximum it should be 4 or 5 lines, and that is two to three sentences maximum, because the person who's reading, he just needs to get an idea about you, a quick idea. And it should define you completely, define what you are here for, what you're looking for. That's the only objective to write that. So keep it concise and powerful, and actually reiterate once you put down the first draft, go through it once again. You'll see we can remove 2 3 words, or we can draft it in a better way such that words are reduced and sentences are concise. Next is use industry slash role specific keywords and skills across your resume. So this is not keyword fitting I'm talking about, because if you see research shows that keyword fitting has not helped people land jobs. So it's not a certain keyword is there for an industry and you fill it in your resume, so the chances of you getting hired go high. It's not that the research does not show that. So it is, but the keyword should be there somewhere on your resume. It may not be overloaded, but it is better if you talk to them in a language they understand. The simple logic is that. and also for the automated, like the resume scanners softwares, where this keywords, it picks up this keywords, and based on the keywords, it does the screening for the resume, so it passes that. That is why we use this. And next is I've seen a lot of people, they write in their work experience, they'll they'll generally use responsible for handling sales and marketing of the Mumbai territory, or responsible for handling 10 sales managers, something like that. So that is something which we should not write, because resume is not a place to say or tell what you were responsible for. And it's more a place to say what you've accomplished in while doing your responsibility, while fulfilling your responsibility. So we should choose action words showing your accomplishments. So it should always, for example, I'll show you an example for this as well on the next slide. So the next one is give quantifiable numbers for your accomplishments. It creates an instant impact and it draws the attention very quickly. Next is avoid excessive usage of abbreviations and jargons on your resume. It is not required. Keep it simple. Keep it very basic. People will like it. Yes. So this is the example where I'm trying to understand and trying to make you understand the choice of words. So this is the same thing written in three different manners. The first one is the one which I said we should not use, responsible for. So this is somebody who's a sales manager, I suppose, and he's handling the South Asian markets. So he has written in his resume, responsible for B2B sales of personal care products in the South Asian markets. So this is something I would not prefer to write this way. I would rather be okay with managed B2B sales. So managed is the action word here. Instead of responsible, we are using the action word managed. So we'll write managed B2B sales for personal care products in the South Asian markets, leading a team of 25 sales personnel. So this sentence has showed instead of your responsibility, it has kind of showed your accomplishment, because you were able to manage a team of 25 people. It has somehow brought your leadership skills to the front. Now, the best way, or even a better way than that, is the last one, which reads, successfully led a team of 25 sales personnel in generating 12 new B2B leads, delivering a 40% growth in sales of personal care products for the South Asian markets in a span of only 6 months. So here, you've given out how efficient you are. You've given out you are capable of driving high growth. You've given out you are capable of leading a team of 25 sales personnel, all of those things, and generating such big leads in such short time is your accomplishment. So you are able to show the accomplishment instead of just mentioning what you are responsible for. Writing what you're responsible for is not a good thing to do on a resume. So the next one, this is about the work experience and the education section. So this is something it's preferred we should maintain a chronological order, starting with the most recent one. So if in your education, you would have done a graduation, then a post graduation. So you should mention the post graduation at the top and the graduation towards the bottom, not the reverse order. The most recent one should be on the top. And the next one, in case of an extensive profile, list only the experience and the education which is most relevant, like I mentioned earlier, because otherwise even the relevant ones tend to be missed out by the reader, because most of the times you would have seen the person starts reading the resume, at the same time he might also be talking to you, so he'll miss it. So we should not do that. The next is using a writing style that takes the focus off any gaps in education or experience. So what I mean here is, I'm sure you would have seen resumes where they tend to draw a dot to dot line. So it draws a line from 2008 to 2011, it joins these two dots, and then it says, yeah, I was working as a sales manager. Then from 2011 to 2012 it shows something else. Then the next one, it starts from 2014. So it's very evidently clearly seen there, there is a gap of 2 years. So you are inviting a question from the interviewer who reads your resume, what is the reason for that two-year gap. That is something we should avoid. So if you have a gap, it's best you write in a style where it is not very clearly evident, there is a gap. So we are not hiding anything, and the intention is not to hide. It's in your interview, you should always be prepared for that answer, why that gap is there, a good answer. There are many ways to answer that, but that's a topic for another discussion anyway. So but if it's there, you know it more than anybody else, you know it. And you don't want to invite a question just by giving it out. So use a style which does not get you to that position. Now the next one is regarding a contact and the contact section or the network section. So this is something which is very important, because most of the times we are submitting resumes through LinkedIn, or we are sending resumes on email, and we want people to reach out, reach back to us in case they have an opportunity. So many times this becomes one of the most important sections, I should say. So the first suggestion here would be avoid giving out the social media handles like FB, Instagram. I see a lot of these things being included, and that especially with the case of freshers, or people who are just graduating from the college, because they are not so much introduced to the world of LinkedIn or Kaggle or GitHub or things like that. So they just tend to mention what wherever their social presence is, which is not really required, and not a very good thing to do, because of a lot of things. Because your FB and Instagram, there would be 100 posts which are there, and a person if he looks at that, he might form an impression which you don't want him to form about you. So that is something which we should avoid, the social media handles. We could instead give the professional network handles if we have, or just avoid the whole thing. LinkedIn is something for the professional job network and professional community, for a lot of idea sharing, thought sharing. And Kaggle again is for data science and related stuff. GitHub is there for coders and programmers. So these are all the professional networks which are there and we can mention. Then again, we should not use fancy or any such email addresses which is cuteprincess.ria or prince or something like that. It should be a professional one, and if you don't have one, just create one, because we are just starting our job or the professional journey. It will always be useful, so it is worth creating a good professional email ID. And I would suggest that everybody should do that if they don't have. Next is don't include all the contact numbers or all the emails you have. We don't need that as well. So just keep it one or maximum two contact numbers, which is enough. And make sure that these contact numbers and the emails are something where you will be reachable for at least the foreseeable future, 6 months to 1 year. So don't if you're planning to move to Canada the next month, don't give a number which won't work after the next month, or something like that. So keep the contact which where you will be reachable for the foreseeable future at least. And also the email and phone icon, this is something which I mentioned. So you could use these icons as well. It looks aesthetically appealing, but there is always a chance the automatic software might miss it. So depending on each job, if you're walking in with your resume, you could use this, because there is a person whom you're trying to impress who looks at your resume, and looking at this visual aesthetics, he would be impressed. But a system cannot be impressed. So if you're submitting your resume, the system really cannot be impressed. So it doesn't matter you use the word email and phone when you're submitting it online. I would look at it that way. Now the next one, writing a resume, that these are some other information which is more like optional, or we could choose to put if it is required. So willingness to travel, this is something which is only for the jobs that require travel. And again, travel readiness or the visa, valid visas that we have. This is more in the IT industry, or in the sales domain, which we see, where a company is looking for somebody who can immediately travel and do some job. So there this comes into picture. Otherwise it's not required. And willingness to relocate, if you're applying for any job which is outside of your current city, are you willing to relocate or no? And personal details like gender, religion, caste, race, disability, marital status, and age. So all of these details are not really required, because most of the companies these days also, they are equal opportunity employers. You would have heard of this term or maybe not also. But what it means is, irrespective of what gender you are, what religion you are, what caste, race, everything, they provide an equal opportunity, and they take pride in being such an employer. So they call themselves equal opportunity employers, and most of the companies these days are going along that route. So we do not need to, like, mention all of these details unless there is a requirement. Now, when is it required? Like, if you're applying for a specific quota. So for example, if you're applying under a disability quota, or you're applying under, like, a certain, there are certain roles which prefer men or which prefer women. The best example if I could give is, like, front office jobs. Many times the front office jobs, they prefer women. And at the same time, something like something to do with a go down or something to do with a warehouse, they prefer men, because, like, that would involve more of field travel and things like that. That's just the perception that people have about men and women. I'm not saying, like, I think both can do either jobs, but that's how the world is, and that's how some preferences are there in the job description. So that is when it makes sense to put your gender, because sometimes just because your gender is not available there, like, your resume might not go through the screening. So we do not want that. If the job description says men preferred, you put your gender men. Like, if it does not call out something like that, you need not put your gender. Right. So these were the things. Now, like, the next is the common pitfalls to avoid. This is something which, even after you've put all your efforts and you've tried to make a very good resume, if you, like, fail at these things, sometimes these are the very common pitfalls. First one is, like, copy pasting from internet without thought and conviction. So whatever you put on your resume, every single word, first and foremost, you should be convinced about that, and you should have a very, like, clear idea what you have written, why you have written. Because otherwise it simply shows, like, your lack of seriousness, lack of honesty. Sometimes it indicates, like, this person is a fraud, kind of uh, knee jerk thought in the mind of the recruiter, which we don't want. The next is, like, failing to spell check and grammar check. So this again, like, even after you put all your best efforts, if your spellings are wrong, if your grammar is wrong, it does not create a very good impression, and it kind of creates an impression that, like, basic things also, the person, like, it simply takes away. So I've seen many people who would have these spell, like, they would not do the spell check and grammar check. The resume is filled with, like, spelling errors, but in their skill set they would also mention attention to detail. So, like, that is really contradicting. Somebody is mentioning in the skill set, or like, attention to detail, they're mentioning in the personality trait, and their resume is completely, like, it's filled with errors. So such situation we do not want to be. Again, like, religious, political, sexual orientations, we need not, like, uh, give out on our resume. So this might create an invisible bias. So this is not, like, something which is to be there on the resume, and mostly this is through our social media handles. uh, and these days companies do, like, they are starting to, many companies have already started, like, they do track, they do scan your social media handles as well, just to see, like, what kind of fit you are to that organization. Then the last one is a very important one. This is, like, lying and over exaggerating on your resume. So this is because ethics are not to be compromised, and like, if you lie or if you over exaggerate, it's not very tough for the recruiter to, like, spot it. And you do not want to be in that position. So best is being honest and being confident about what you are, what is the skill set you have. That is the best approach. Now the next one is just, like, I'm MS Word. You would all be, I guess you would be, like, pretty comfortable with the Microsoft Word software, and you would have all used it for different purposes. So that is a software which, like, you could use for your resume writing as well, at least for the basic, like, to start and put it. It's the best one. So how it helps, it has, like, a lot of ready to use built-in templates. So if you do not have much idea, or you're thinking, like, where to get a good template for free, because if you go online, a lot of templates are watermarked, and a lot of templates would be tough to edit. So like, these word templates are completely free to use, and these are good ones. It gives you a pretty good variety as well. You could choose from those and like, get started. It is also helpful for people who are like, trying to put down a resume in a quick time. So like, these help. Now the next one is, it is integrated with the LinkedIn public profile. So as soon as you put a skill set or a role that you're looking to apply for, it starts giving you like, inputs basis similar profiles which are there on LinkedIn. I'll show you an example in the next slide to that as well. And like, the next one is spell check and grammar check. This is a very basic thing, and everybody, like, this is the most important thing that people should do after writing the resume. The last one is a thesaurus. It gives you a thesaurus function as well right there. So this helps you basically like, choice of words. So I could use a word and I could use 10 other words instead of that particular word. So sometimes we do not get the word that we are looking to write, and we end up writing something close to that. But thesaurus right there will help you like, use the best word in place of that. And the next is a word count. So like, again, research, a lot of research has showed like, anything around the 500 range is the best word limit count for a resume. So like, below that, people tend to like, say that there's not enough information there on the resume. And 500 to 550, greater than 550, people tend to say there's too much on the resume. So the sweet spot for that is somewhere around 500. So you could always keep that in a mind and like, try to limit your resume to that word count, 500 odd. Yeah, so this is like, the Microsoft Word screen I've just captured to show you. So like, here, if you go to the new, you open a new, like, you try to open a new file, you click on new, then there will be categories. So in those categories, you should search resume and cover letters. So you will find so many of them. Like, these are all kinds of resumes. And I guess it includes the photo one, non-photo one, different color, like, themes, and different layouts, different sections already built in, all of these. So like, this is something which you could use, and you could go for the simple one, or you could go whatever fits you best. There is like, you need to find your fit, but this helps. And again, like, the other things which I told are on this page. So this is like, again, a feature which is there on MS Word. So you should go to this review menu. If you can see, like, here, this is the review menu here. Under this review, what you will see something called a resume assistant right here on the rightmost side. So when you open this resume assistant, like, I've just entered here the role which I'm interested in. It is senior internal auditor, and I've also included something like the industry which says chemicals. So like, based on that, what it does is, it goes back to LinkedIn public profiles which are available, and it starts giving you all these pointers. So like, these are the things which people generally write. So this, I'm not saying copy paste from this, but this gives you an idea, and this gives you a start to read it, and then like, write it in your own words. So that is what this can be used for. And similarly, like, the next is the word count. If you see this small pop-up window, it gives you how many paragraphs, how many lines, how many pages, how many words. All of that is included here. So this is just to keep a track. And on the rightmost, you'll see the thesaurus. So like, I've used this word investigate. Now investigate word could be replaced with so many other words. It could be examine, explore, inspect, anything, any of these. So like, that depends on you. And this gives you uh, a ready reference for like, a choice of words. You could use the one which you feel is the most appropriate one. Right. Now this is something which is like, so I guess now, by now, we have all the tips that we need to write a good resume. After writing a resume, there are a few things which we need to be like, careful about. So the first point which I've written is like, tailor 2 to 3 versions of the resume based on the kind of jobs and the roles you're targeting. And this is especially important for candidates who are looking for a domain switch. So like, somebody who's looking for a switch from programming to data science, and somebody, or business intelligence, or project management. So like he was a programming person, he was a coder, but yes, he has led teams, he has done project management, he has some of those skills, and he now wants to move from that coding job to a data science or a business intelligence or a project management job. So this person needs to build 2 to 3 versions of his resume accordingly, and like then apply to specific jobs using those resumes. Similarly, like if you're looking for a change from MNC to startup, these days a startup experience is like valued pretty high. So from an MNC to a startup job, then you need to tune your resume accordingly, because in a startup you are it's not role restricted. You are you are your own boss. You have to have the initiative. You have to have do play don a lot of hats. So that kind of personality trait, that kind of accomplishments should be included in your resume before applying for a startup job. Then checking for any outdated, irrelevant information or seemingly false information on your resume. So for example, like I mentioned, avid reader, I see a lot of people put this, but they do not even have a favorite author or a book. So because when you put this, the interviewer, the very next question, he might ask you is, oh, so who's your favorite author? And that is where you get caught, because you do not have one. You have just written it blindly or copied it from somewhere, avid reader, because it looked good. So you need to have a favorite author, you need to have a favorite book. Sometimes you need to be able to give out the book review or discuss about the book, things like that. Only then we should be putting something like an avid reader. Similarly, music lover, so without knowledge of what all genres of music are there, we just put music lover. So that kind of gives out a false or a seemingly false impression on us. The most important one, get your resume proofread and reviewed, fine tune if required based on feedbacks. Give it to your seniors, give it to some role models if you have in your profile, in your industry, in your domain. Get them get them to review it, get them to give you feedback, and fine tune your resume based on those feedbacks, but based on your judgment, whether those changes are required or not required. And the last one is do not forget to update your resume and keep it current. This is even for me today, it applies to me, because even though I've written it, I myself fail to keep it current. But I think it's very important, even when not actively looking for jobs, it would be good to revisit your resume at least once in every 6 months. Right. So I guess that was from my side, and it's been a one-way communication till now. So I would be happy to take any questions.
Lovely, Lijot. I think that was very informative. I love that you went step by step and explained every part, right from the group. I mean, the description of your resume till what kind of resume you should be putting out, what you shouldn't be putting out as well. I think it was very informative, and we've had all the participants stay on till the end as well. So that's absolutely brilliant. We do have a couple of questions from the students, but because we're a little overdue time, we'll just pick out a couple of major generic questions that have come up.
Yeah.
So one of the questions somebody's asking is, we get a lot of templates and patterns of resumes on the web. Can we use that, or should we make like a completely new, fresh resume?
No, actually, the problem with templates is things are defined prior. So it would have some kind of shading, some kind of color template, or some alignments fixed, and you would not be able to change it. And the free ones mostly are the bad ones. The good ones are always paid. Otherwise it would be watermarked, and once you put in 50-60% of your effort and then you struggle with the formatting, those kind of things happen. So I would say if you can make do with a MS Word template, that's the best way to go about it. Or else go for a paid good template, which gives you the freedom to work on it the way you want.
Okay, all right. So somebody's also asking how to write a cover letter for a fresher, and is it important to have a cover letter right now?
uh, so the cover letter, generally, if the cover letter matters, if you are sending in your resume through somebody, it should be there, because it kind of, and how to write the cover letter, I think the question includes that as well, right? Yeah, so it should,
Yeah.
for a fresher, what you should mention is, sir, I'm so and so person, and I'm studying here or whatever. I will be graduating in the fall or in the spring, whatever. And then you should mention something why you are interested in that particular organization. You should Google up information about that organization. You should mention what you stand to gain. You should mention what you bring to the table. and you should say like, I would love to explore this opportunity. Basic, like, not too much of buttering as well, but just the basic stuff.
Okay. But do people still write cover letters right now? Like I think, as you mentioned, I think only if you're doing it through somebody, like a referral.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right. Somebody's also asking, sir, should we mention LinkedIn account link instead of the username because usernames are quite common?
No, because like, many times you would be converting this to a PDF, or you would be printing it out and giving it like, to the person. So then your link is not of so much use, because probably the links would be much longer than your user handle. So just give the user handle. If the person, if even if he wants to type it, he can type it. Like, I think
Okay.
that's better.
Okay, so this another question has come up that has also been my question. So, what is the optimum number of pages for a username or a CV? Because some people say you should have one page, or sometimes it goes more than one page. So, what are your views on that?
So a CV generally, if you see like, so somebody who has a CV, that would be, I've seen scientists, I've seen researchers, I've seen like, people who have been in that field, and they just like, they do so much, they have so much to say. They have researched on so many things. So that is something which is the CV. Like, people maintain it 4, 5 pages also. And but for freshers, it really doesn't apply. Freshers, it's always best to just have a resume and have 2, 3 versions of it. And now coming to the length of the resume, so like I told, like, when we form the mind map of what to put in the resume, we'll exactly have like, how long our resume is going to be. So we need not include personal details, father's name, place of birth, no need. And even like, 11th, 12th class accomplishments and things like that. So once we have what we need to include, you'll obviously find like, what is the good length of a resume. But thumb rule, a 2 page resume would give you somewhere around 500 words, and that would be the best size to have. But yes, if you're a fresher, it's a little tough. But in that case, you could make a very good, impressive 1 page resume, and I think it should do the job.
Okay, so I can see two students asking this question: how to explain a one-year education gap? So some of them have an education gap year. How do they make it look good on a resume?
So, like, when you have a 1 year gap, so of course, if you're talking about the gap because of this COVID, everybody would understand that, and that is not something you need to really like, explain. But if it's otherwise, there are 2 ways to go about it. One is like, make an excuse and look bad about it, or else you could always show like, how you use that 1 year to upskill yourself, or like, gain additional skills when you were not doing a full-time job. So that could be anything, like, you could again display your passion there by like, saying I used my this skill, like, and did freelance work. And because that was my passion, and I was very happy because my customers or my clients were very happy with me, things like that. So like, a reskill, a certification, or a course, a short term course, or a freelance working, all of these things are good way how you can like, explain that 1 year gap. Of course, the reason for the gap could be anything, but if you show the recruiter how you use that 1 year gap to build yourself in that also, it really gives a very good impression, like, about you.
Makes sense. So somebody's also asking, a lot of people put their photo on the CVs or resumes. Does it provide an upper hand? Is it required?
No, like I mentioned, like, most of the people, most of the recruiters do not hire based on appearance, unless there are some specific job roles. For example, if you are a front office or a receptionist, maybe yes, they would look for like, how you appear, because people, as soon as they come in, they're going to like, see your face. Or you are into sales, or you're into high net worth clients, like, something like that. In those roles, you need to be like, some they would themselves ask for the photo. But like, if they are not asking for your photo, it's not required on your resume. But like, I would say, just keep the layout of your resume flexible in a way that just beside your name on the left side top, keep it a little empty, just in case they ask you to paste a photo or put a photo. Like, you do not need to reformat your resume top to bottom. You just need to add it, like, so it will be quick.
Okay. So I can see a couple of people asking questions because a lot of our mentees are freshers currently in college. So they have no experience, probably just a couple of internships, no work experience on their resumes. They want to know what can they focus on to build their resumes and, at least stand out a little bit.
I think, like, like I told, for to stand out, the best thing is how well you show your passion. The recent good relevant webinars or certification courses or anything like that, if you have done, if you have done your internship, don't again, like, in your internship, don't say I was responsible for this, or I did this, I did that. Say, like, what you learned, especially if you can talk business sense, like, what you learned about the business. It impresses people at a higher level who are recruiting you. So these are the things that make you stand out. Like, internship everybody will do, but if you can give, like, what you learned from there, something really good, that would help.
Okay. So is like the mother's name, father's name important on a resume? Because we see a lot of people putting that out on their resume as
No,
well.
no, it's not really required. It's just a old fashion that is there, like, including father's name and mother's name on the resume. And like, I would say, if at all it is required, probably it is the father's name, because of some, if they want to look at some documents or something. But I would say even that is not required on a resume. We generally don't see it, because reason is, once the recruiter hires you, he will collect, like, all your essential documents, most importantly your PAN and other documents. So, like, and they would do a background verification. So there they will have all this information. So, like, we don't need to waste space on our resume to give out father's like, name and mother's name or anything like
Makes sense. Some people want to know, are resumes equally important for internships? And could you suggest any tips for landing internships for undergrad students?
that. Yes, like, resume, yeah, resume or a short profile, one pager profile is important for an internship as well, because especially, like, so in an internship resume, you need to be a little bit, you need to be thinking a little bit different. So, like, you need to know everybody who's coming for an internship, nobody's experienced, everybody is a fresher. You need to be standing out. And, like, there's something that the recruiter would look at is, like, how fast you are able to learn. So if like, a quick learner is something of a personality trait that you show, and you have something to back it up when you are interviewed or something like that. So the best way, like, when I was in Bangalore, I managed to learn Kannada within a few months, like 2 3 months. And I was able to, like, convey that to them, like, it took only 2 3 months to learn a completely new language. So that's how, like, I displayed them, like, I'm a quick learner. So something like that, they would be happy to take you, because they want to extract maximum work from you in those given 2 3 months, without having to, like, give you that very. So you need to have a steep learning curve, basically. You need to show that you have a steep learning curve.
Makes sense. So somebody is also asking, so I think a lot of students take a drop year to prepare for CAT preparations. Is this required to be put on an a resume to say that, I took a drop year because of this, or just maybe just don't say anything about it, and if the recruiter asks about it?
Yeah, like, I guess that's the best way to do. So don't put your resume in such a way that this gap is evidently visible. You need not hide it, but, like, you do not put out in such a way that it's evidently visible. So if the recruiter notices that gap, he will ask you, and that is when you can always say, like, I had this aspiration and I took that time out to study and focus on CAT preparation. There's nothing wrong with that. So, like,
Okay.
but you don't want to invite that question unnecessarily.
Makes sense. So they're also asking, should we write a resume or a CV for your MBA interviews?
Actually, like, MBA interviews, I'm not really sure, because most of the colleges will have their own kind of, like, getting the profile from the candidates. Sometimes it is a detailed one, or sometimes they have their own set of information which they want. So I don't think, like, resume or CV is the correct document to be given for a MBA interview. It's mostly, yes, I mean, if you're an experienced person going for an MBA, your general resume would do good, because MBA, once again, is not about, like, too much of research or anything like that. So a resume, and especially to show, like, what kind of industry exposure you have, your resume should show what kind of industry exposure you have, what kind of businesses you have worked with, and what kind of, like, leadership or management qualities you already have. And then based on that, like, your MBA could be a good experience.
Okay. So somebody is asking an interesting question. In college, everybody has different kinds of GPAs, like the 10th, 12th grade marks. Will these low percentage create a problem in their resumes, like when they're showing it to a recruiter?
Right. So, like, if you're a fresher, obviously people tend to look at these percentages a little more keenly. But once you gain some experience, this becomes really irrelevant. And once you write your work experience, like, for example, myself, I don't write the percentages at all now. I just mentioned, like, this was the year that I passed the 10th, passed 12, passed engineering. That's it. And then, like, it comes to the work experience part. So, but yes, if you're putting this, will these low percentages create a problem? I mean, you cannot do anything about those low percentages. It is what it is. So the best way is to, like, answer it. So, for example, if you scored less in your 12th, but you bounced back in your graduation, you have a good GPA in your graduation, you could, like, come up with that. Like, I realized how important marks are or something like that, and you managed to, like, get back on track. But yeah, I don't think it really has too much of negative impact if you're able to impress the recruiter, like, through your interview and things like that.
Right. And I think nowadays it also depends a lot on skills. Like if even if you have low marks, the recruiter will ask you, okay, what do you know in the field more than just, putting it on paper.
Yeah.
So I think it's very good with this whole new change.
Yeah.
We're just going to be looking at last three questions. We can't look at too many. So Jita's asking, should I add languages I know in a resume?
Yeah, very nice question. Actually, I forgot to cover this. So, like, this is something I have answered a lot of times. So, should we include languages? I'm guessing these are, like, English, Hindi, these kind of languages, and not the programming languages. So, yeah. So these languages, like, you need to include if your job role is such. So many times you would be traveling across South India to sell a certain, like, a product. So you will travel to Karnataka, you will travel to Andhra. So that is when you need to show your language skills. Or at the same time, like, you could be working in a MNC where you are in a team which continuously has, like, a lot of, for example, best is something like a Genpact, which is a business process outsourcing kind of a company where you could have a client who's sitting in France or Germany or, like, anywhere in the world. So that is also a job role where your language skills, if you show, it will give you added advantage. But otherwise, like, somebody who's looking for a job locally in Hyderabad or something like that, or in Bangalore or something like that, they don't need to really put emphasis on the language skills.
Okay. Somebody's also asking, a simple one or using a colorful template is good for a fresher.
Um, I mean, not colorful, I will say, but a good theme, like, still pretty basic and kind of two color kind of combination. But yes, you could use a little bright one to make it interesting, rather than a very plain boring black and white. But, like, keep it very neat and clean. That's it.
Okay. All right. Coming to the last question, while writing a resume for a college application, how exactly should the students or mentees, put out their hobbies and accomplishments?
Yes. So, like, for a college application, accomplishments would be something which you have. So for a college, obviously, something which you had in your recent past. So if it was your school, you could put something where, like, you brought laurels to your school. It could be anything. So that basically shows, like, if if that college admits you, tomorrow you have a chance that you'll bring laurels to that college as well. You won't be one of those, like, the bottom rankers and things like that. So the college need not worry about its rankings or how to get you a placement, and, like, suffering from a bad placement percentage, things like that. So you could show some accomplishments like that. And I think hobby wise, reading is the best if you have, because colleges, like, that's a place where people read so much. And that would be a good hobby to put there, reading.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Lijo. It was a very informative webinar, and thank you for answering all the questions the mentees had. We tried to pick up a lot of generic questions. People usually have questions related to their resume, like should I put my mother's name or father's name? How colorful should it be? What are the important things that highlight the resume as well? So thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was absolutely wonderful, and I'm sure the mentees will also feel the same as well. So mentees, we put out a feedback form. You can tell us how you like the webinar, and what other topics you are also expecting, to come up and you would like to, listen to. So thank you so much, Liju. But before we wrap up, do you have a couple of last few words for the mentees?
Yeah, like, I just want to say that, like, I hope this session was really helpful for you. and I've tried to make it as elaborate and as simple, but still, you need to practice. Like the job description thing which I mentioned, you need to practice. You need to put the first draft, you need to, and only you will come up with something close to perfect. So do that for yourself, and it will help a lot in in your future. And in case of anything, you can reach out to me. I'm there on QFIS as a mentor, and you could reach out to me on QFIS, or you could reach out to me personally on my email or phone, which I mentioned here. uh, Either is fine. I'm there if you need me. That's it.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Lijo. Thank you so much. It's very, very informative. Thank you for taking time out. Thank you to all the mentees for posting in your questions and attending this webinar as well. Everyone, please take care, stay safe, and hope you keep like attending more webinars that we conduct. Thank you so much to the QFIS team as well. A huge shout out to you all to bringing these beautiful mentors on board and sharing their insights as well. Thank you so much, Lijo.
Thank you.
Thank you.